The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game, a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Reagan Kelly, and I'm joined this week by all of my awesome co-hosts.
Nate Heininger.
Laura Nash.
And Shane Kelly. And Reagan, the way you said, respect your time, really made me feel like I was ready for this show.
Game show host
We
energy.
are coming in hot this week, guys. Hype for Carto.
on like the chillest game that we've done in months. The most calming game I've played in a while.
Carto hype!
Yeah, we're coming in hot.
Yeah, we're talking about Carto, guys. Carto is a game from the developer Sunhead Games, and it's available on pretty much all of the platforms. It's on Steam, Switch, the PlayStation 4, I believe, Xbox, the ones, that one. And it's on all of the PC game stores like Humble and Epic, and it's also on Game Pass, which is nice if you own it, if you subscribe to that service. So it's literally on all of the things.
This is an incredible feel-good game, and I think we can all just right up front say that this was a really fun experience. Whose idea was it to play this? Who got this in front of us?
You know, I'm sure it was suggested by one of our listeners, and now I'm not remembering who, and so I will search the Discord and try to chime in if I find out who it was that suggested we play this, because I'm glad they did. I had a lovely time with it, and I honestly was not planning on playing this prior to... So the reason that I kind of nudged this a little on the queue was that I recently subscribed to Xbox Game Pass, and so it's a fairly new game. And I forget, let me see. When did it come out? It came out on October 27th, 2020. Yeah. No, I'd leave it in. We're keeping it rolling. But I got Game Pass recently, and this was one of the games that was on my like short games list that happened to be part of Game Pass. And so I booted it up for a couple minutes, and it was surprisingly my thing. Like we'll get into this in a little bit more detail, but I will say that like on the face of it, it seemed a little like, at first I was like, oh, this seems a little generic. It looks like, a cute not retro. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like a cute indie 2D game with some light puzzle elements. And that's exactly what it was. I just didn't know how much I would kind of vibe with it, which is hard to really, explain in great detail. I guess we'll work on that.
Yeah, we're going to try.
A lot of why it's hard to explain comes down to the fact that this game, for me, is all about vibes. This is a game that I was literally playing, chilled out, in the evenings, cuddled up in bed with a blanket snuggled around me. And this is a game that is best played under those circumstances. It's got this perfect storybook aesthetic. It is interesting, fun map puzzles, and it is just story-wise a game that's all about friendly people doing nice things and helping each other on adventures.
Yeah, being kind.
Yeah.
If you're having trouble picturing what makes this game so chill, so Shane said map puzzle game. So it is a game where you have kind of this magical map where you can take individual tiles of the map and move them to other parts where they fit. And then the landscape changes of the island you're on. So if you've played the board game Carcassonne, it's very much like Carcassonne, where you can take the tiles and you need to match forest to forest or river to river, but you can take the piece and you can rotate it, move it around the map, plop it down, and suddenly you're on the other side of the world, or you've uncovered a new puzzle. So that's the mechanic for most of the game. The game is a lot more than that, because the puzzles are about kind of helping people, and they're little charming quests, and there's a lot of thought and consideration and gentleness in this game, which is really nice.
I really, really enjoyed this game, and I had the same feeling as Reagan, where I was like, I was expecting it to be fun, but I didn't expect to click with it, but as much as I did. But this is actually, I have like a really hard time playing games for a really long session. Part of why this show and this whole premise works for me is that like we play short games and can play them over a bunch of short sessions, and this game is actually one of the longest sessions I've had in a long time, was sitting down and playing this game, because I was just it was so calming, and I don't know, maybe it's the events of the past month or so that have really made me want something as calming and as relaxing as this. So it's kind of the perfect vibe for right now. And also, Carcassonne is one of my favorite board games of all time. It's actually really the first sort of like Euro game or advanced board game that I had ever played. It was my introduction to that world, and it is also a game that I've played like literally hundreds of times. So just that feeling of like switching tiles around and matching them and connecting them and making something bigger, it was really, really satisfying. That said, if you're a big fan of Carcassonne, like there was none of the strategy or like competitive elements of Carcassonne are carried over to this, just literally the tile placing mechanic, but it is like a direct copy of that. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I love Carcassonne, I'm gonna love this game, you probably will love this game, but not because of its connection to Carcassonne. Yeah. Though that tile switching is fun.
They had so much variety to the way that the tile placing was worked into different puzzles that it would not have shocked me if they had randomly one level where you were getting some sort of point system based on your connections of roads and cities.
I thought they might do that. Like, I was waiting for a meeple placement section, right? and there's even little icons on the map that kind of reminded me of some of the expansions of Carcassonne. There's like a goat imprint on a bunch of them later in the game, and it's like, oh, that reminds me of the pig expansion. But no, there's literally no, like, none of the strategic elements of Carcassonne ever enter this game, but the tile placement is the exact same thing, but it's satisfying.
So I confess I didn't finish the game, but I would be shocked if it changed from the marvelously low stakes of the beginning of it, because this is not a game where people are dying, kidnapped, where you have to save somebody's heart from being like the stakes couldn't be lower. It's like, hi, can you get a plant because I like plants? And I'm so here for that.
So why don't we start off by kind of telling the story of the game, like what you're doing, because that'll help drive through the rest of the conversation. You play as Carto, which when this game started, I thought was a direct reference to Carcassonne. I was like, oh, Carcassonne.
Instead of cartographers?
I know. And then like, seriously, it's like 45% into the game, someone says cartographer, and I'm like, I'm an idiot. It's cartographer.
Yeah, right.
Not. But anyway, so the game opens up. Carto, you've been separated from your granny, and your goal really is to get reconnected with your granny. And you've fallen into this really lush and beautiful world, and your goal is to find your granny. But the way you accomplish that is exploring this world and essentially encountering a ton of different unique little biomes, little civilizations, basically, that need help with something. And the things that they need help with, you're right, Laura, they're never like really dramatic. There are, like, later in the game, there are some things that seem a little bit more dramatic, but everything it's all very calm and all very chill. And by helping these people, who are all immediately welcoming and the most gracious NPCs of any game I've ever played.
Wow,
everyone
you came to our island?
Everyone
literally is like, what are you doing in my house? Just kidding.
Yeah, like everyone is so happy to see you. Yeah, you're constantly trespassing and everyone's like, wow, did you sneak in? Boy, nice to meet you. So
a visitor? Here, let me explain to you in 2 sentences everything that I'm about as a person.
And so you're going around helping these people accomplish whatever their problem is, and that is serving a grander problem of finding your granny, who is piloting an airship, which is awesome. She's an awesome granny. And, that's really it. You're going from like a desert area to a grassland area to like a glacier area, all these different biomes. And the puzzles they are interesting but never really challenging, which helps with this game too. Like there's not like a hint system, but there's always an NPC around that will like give you the overarching goal of the puzzle. Yeah. There's always something in the area that will like remind you of exactly what you need to do. And they constantly wall you into the world, the part of the like world or the map where your puzzle is going to be solved. So it's incredibly it doesn't hold your hand, but it's just really thoughtful about it, because the game definitely doesn't want you to get stuck on a puzzle. Mm-hmm. And I found them to be really, really satisfying puzzles, though, because the game is so smooth and everything just works. It was really fun when you solve a puzzle and you never really get stuck on them.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird the way that they present the puzzles, because I mean, you're only ever really solving one puzzle at a time, which I think is really good here, because there's no place in the UI of the game where it says like, here is the puzzle that here is your goal, here's what you're doing. It's just like you said, Nate, you have to just walk around and talk to people. So you have two things you're doing. About half the time that I was moving the map around, I was doing it because I was trying to solve some part of the puzzle. And then about half the time, it was because sometimes that's the fastest way to get around in order to like, oh, I need to go talk to this guy. What did the guy with the bear tell me to do again? Let me go back and talk to the guy with the bear again. Click, click, click. Step one little block over, and there you are.
It's little tesseracts. Yeah. So I think the idea of this being like an island where you get one puzzle at a time really ties into the genre of this is a puzzle game. So it's not an open world puzzle game where you get a bunch of different little starts of a puzzle and then you have 8 open tabs at once, and then you go get the fetch quest, and then suddenly you can kind of solve all 8 of the missions. It's not that kind of building upon itself kind of puzzle. This is, you get one at a time, you do it, you move on. And I really like that as a tie-in to the vibe of this game, because it feels very safe. It's like you're walking on an invisible bridge, but you know your foot's always going to land somewhere, as opposed to games that kind of want you to, you will be jumping all over the map, sure, but you know where you're going, you know what you have to do, and if there's any question, you can get it. It's not... It makes it sound like a game for kindergartners when I say it like that, but I do think the puzzle is how do you execute it, not what do I do next. Yeah. And there are so many puzzle games masquerading as puzzle games that aren't actually puzzle games. They're really just trying to figure out what the hell to do next.
That's a really good point, and it is really graceful. Like Nate mentioned this earlier, but he kind of phrased it as like the game kind of walling you into where you need to be to solve a puzzle, and that sounds much more sort of railroady than this actually feels in practice. Like it has a really gentle hand guiding you towards the next thing you need to do.
And to Laura's point, like almost everything has like one solution, and you just need to do that one thing and you've solved it. You don't need to do it's not like a 5-step puzzle. Even in that one thing, you just do one thing at a time. And the trick is figuring out okay, I know I need to arrange these tiles in a certain way. I just need to figure out how to arrange the tiles in the right way. And there'll be like a big bling, and there'll be a noise, and you'll know right away, I did it. And then the map will update, and you'll know where you're supposed to go to next. it might be a little challenging at times to figure out the one thing that you're supposed to do. This game isn't always easy, and it actually ramps up pretty nicely. But it's always, you can feel very comfortable knowing that I don't need to, this game isn't trying to trick me. There's not some grand scheme here. There's not going to be like a multi-layered puzzle that I'm going to like fail 3/4 of the way through. I just need to figure out like, what's the trick? What's the one thing it's trying to get me to do? If I can do that one thing, I know I'll solve it. And there'll be another puzzle, 30 seconds later that will probably be similar but different, that will still test me and make me think in a different way. And I just do that one thing and just keep marching forward. The puzzles were fun, but you're also really just wanting to see like, what's going on here? What are all these different characters, and how nice is everyone going to be to me?
Yeah, often these are pure puzzle game. Often this kind of game is just a pure mechanic game like Baba's You, where like, things that are this clearly defined often have no narrative. This and Monsters Expedition both have narrative, and
which I just started and am really into. We should talk about that maybe later.
Yeah, but maybe is another episode.
Yeah,
but,
totally.
I'm just saying, like, it's crazy to me that we got 2 games like that this year when there hasn't been one in a while.
That's kind of true, and I think we're kind of glossing over how good I think the story of this game is. Like, it's really simple, but like what this game does really, really well is giving you these like very simple characters that have something that they care about, and they give you just enough for you to care about it too. So your main character is like your main character is just looking for her granny, right? Just looking to kind of like move through the world and reunite with her grandmother. But like the sort of second main character, so that's the main character, Carto. But the second main character, I think it's Shannon. I may be getting
Shannon. Yeah.
Is kind of with you through most of the game. And when you first meet her, she is part of a kind of an island tribe where they have a tradition where when a child turns 15, they have to leave home and find a new island to live on, and they can never
come back. Never come back.
Never see their family again.
If this game wasn't so delightful, there are some weird things going on in these cultures that you're like, what?
And she doesn't like this, and so initially she's like resisting leaving because she loves her family and her island. And then when she does leave, you go with her as a friend to kind of support her because she has to leave. And and it's her journey is like. By
the way, Reagan, I just have to interject now. They say at some later point that this tradition is because because the world is so dangerous, and that when the kids don't come back, it's to protect the parents' feelings. When their kids go off and die.
Oh my god!
It's because it's better not to know if they die in the sea.
Oh my word!
Well, it also,
and if they came back, you'd know which ones died, I guess.
Yeah, but it also implies that there's like some, omnipotent being that is also restricting them from going back, and the ones that die are the ones that like actually tried to come home and they just got killed by like the god of the sea or whatever.
But Shannon does go home.
I know.
Sorry.
Well,
we're spoiling. We're spoiling.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's a huge spoiler, but we won't go any further
not
than
a
that.
big spoiler. What is it?
Spoiler for narrative trajectory, because when she was like, I would like to come home, I'm like, oh, the game will end by her coming home, probably.
It's I found her story to be like, it is sort of the side story, but in a way it's the main story, because like Carto's story is so simple, right? She just wants to reunite with her grandmother that she like fell out of the. By the way, what is the deal with her grandmother? Oh, like a person who sort of like hovers above the world in an airship with a magical map that can rearrange things, and
that's what I mean.
She's sort of the god of this.
There's a lot
world
going on in this world. There's the mother tree, which is a whole other thing. Like, there's a lot going on in this game that it makes me think this is one of those games that like the writers must have had like a lore Bible, that like one of the, like, I feel like one of the people who wrote it probably wrote like a novel about this world, and then this game is just scratching the surface. It definitely feels like they want.
I was trying to figure out who localized it. I couldn't find info on that part of it.
Yeah, that's something. This is developed by a Taiwanese studio, which I didn't find out until we were just sitting down to record. But yeah, I assume that like they must have the writing is very natural. I assume they must have, I don't know anything about their process here, but like
the absolute funniest thing about the writing in this game is the way that they give Carto these lines that are like that are just emoji. Like they actually have really excellently animated, really expressive little sprites that are all done in this beautiful watercolor style. So this is great. But every now and then they decide they really want Carto to have a speech bubble appear above her head. And it's things like with the winky face emoji with the like minus sign
emoticons.
nose.
Yeah.
Every time it's the little text keyboard emoticons.
Yeah, Carto doesn't speak, which actually works really well because then every character in the game just like assumes that Carto is also being incredibly positive and happy to help. So they're just like, all right, let's keep going. And Carto will just like sometimes almost like mischievously winky face or mischievously smile. It's pretty funny. At first I thought it was like, the first time you do it, you're like, oh, that's kind of cute. But they actually do it so much where all that she responds with is a smile or a winky face that it kind of circles back on itself and it becomes really effective and really funny every time it happens. I was impressed that they were able to convey so much with just a single emoticon.
Well, what's really funny about it is that like those
actually
those sprites are so emotive. Like you'll have one time where, she says in her speech bubble a winky face, and in one she's smiling and in the other she's laughing, and you can tell the difference because the sprites themselves are actually very very nicely animated.
Yeah, there's a lot of Carto does a lot of speaking with her hands. So they'll do entire things where she'll act out something with her hands. A character will say something like a full response, and then Carto will just respond with like a winky face. Yeah, and it works. It's another thing that like, I was not expecting this game to work as well as it does, but it just everything really is so tonally. Yeah, everything works. Everything is so tonally connected.
Yeah,
it's really nice.
Maybe now's a good time for us to talk about the art style too, since you were mentioning the sprites, Shane. And it's a beautiful. It's very flat. It has a sort of a feeling of like paper cut dioramas a little bit because of the way that the like 2D sprites work. But it also had, I thought, a little bit of a Mary Blair kind of vibe, or a little bit of.
Got a lot of it's painterly. They feel like daubs of color. It's someone said there's a watercolor texture treatment to things. Like it is a watercolor transparency to the layers of color, but it's not that kind of blurry edge watercolor. It's as if someone watercolored on a piece of sketch paper. It's that kind of quality of color. It's very bright. There's a lot of but the reason I said it's painterly is because you can really see like it's not done in pencil, it's not done in pen, it's done with like big dollops of brushes, and you can definitely see that in there. There's a lot of movement. I think that's what I really gravitated to. It's that when you pass a tree, the tree shifts, and when you pass anything, it rustles, like the grass moves.
Oh yeah.
And
sometimes like a ton. I don't want to again get into spoilers, but like one of my favorite moments in this game is that there's a point where you kind of are in a sort of a living forest, and once you, I guess, like commune with the mother tree, all of the trees in the forest move to get out of your way as you walk. And it was just the most beautiful animation. I loved it.
Really cool. The trees, and there is some flat design on top of it. Like the trees are they're a little less. Trees. They're a little less painterly, but I think it actually like it works really well. It makes some of the things stick out a little bit more than other things. It works really, really well. And also in between, the game is broken into chapters, and in between chapters, as you accomplish whatever helping hand you needed to give that chapter, it'll end with still like paintings. Like the whole screen becomes like a triumphant, whatever it is that you're trying to do. It'll be like just a still painting of all of the characters or all whatever that final moment was. And where like, maybe other games would do a cut scene using like the world or the sprites or something like this. This just puts up like a still image of all the characters like hugging or whatever it is. And it looks even more painted because it's a still image and doesn't require animation. And it's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as like Mary Blair is a good comparison. It's not as stylized. It definitely feels modern, kind of like Old Man's Journey. It's got that, but as for like the way that the color is layered and the way that the kind of the roundness of all the characters,
and sort of the like it's this sort of lots of beautiful colors, but there's no like outlines. It's a very simple illustration style that I found very, very appealing. Obviously, if you look this game up, you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Another comp I just thought of too, not exactly for the art style, but sort of what the game world looks like that you're going around in, because you're in the map is all squares, and when you go to the edge of a map, if you've played either the new one or the original Toe Jam and Earl games, where you're just like where you're just out there like in a floating space, where if you go to the edge, you can go right up to the edge. Now in Toe Jam and Earl, you fall off and you'll go down to the world below. But it's like this floating flat island that everything on it is very rich. But after that, it's just like empty space all around it. It's a really cool effect. I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, I'll also say that all of the trees and bushes are very Scandinavian mid-century modern.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to have any of those trees or leaves or bushes as like prints for napkins in my house.
Yeah, definitely. You could see it being on a backsplash at IKEA.
100%.
Yeah, for
in
sure.
a good way. Like, that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, the game is beautiful. It really, really works. Similarly, the sound design and the music is as pleasant and thoughtful as you would want it to be. At first, when I started, I was like, oh, this is kind of a good game to like maybe have some other music playing or something like that. But once I really got into it, I was like, no, I want to hear the music that this game is playing on each map. It's just really, really chill. I've never played Animal Crossing, but I kept thinking this is probably the same sort of music that something like Animal Crossing has. It's really calming and really, really nice. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was pretty
I found
chill.
one recognized name in the writing, by the way, because we're talking about the writing. I was trying to dig into it a little bit and Google around. One of the guys who was a writer on this was also a script editor and contributing writer on Celeste, and a editor and writer for a large volume of jokes, it says here, on Guacamelee 2.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, because this game is so pun heavy, but like really, really, really like childlike puns, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the jokes are just puns, and not any one individual pun is very funny, but the
amalgamation.
The expanse of puns that they accomplish.
Yeah, puns are not meant to make you laugh. They are meant to crush your spirit until you laugh collectively.
Yeah, like there are parts there early on in the game, you go to an abandoned camp and every single item you inspect is like, it's a pun. It's just a pun about that item. And then the rest of the game, almost every character is going to do some sort of pun. Everything is just really, really silly. And I laughed at this game multiple times, but almost never for like a just perfect joke. More just like everything that led up to that.
I didn't like take a bunch of screenshots of the jokes or puns in this, but like I did take one of this pun, which isn't even that good of a pun, but I wanted to share it because I think it's representative, and I laughed enough to take a screenshot. There's a fishing game, sort of mini game section in this game, and there's several fish types that you have to collect.
Yes, there is.
And each one of them is a pun, and I really appreciated that one of the fish you have to catch is called Carp Diem, and it says, "A fish that looks ready to seize its prey."
Oh no.
Yeah, that is represented. The whole, almost everything is like that. It's great.
So it's good bad jokes like that. I enjoyed that very much. I had a good chuckle at a lot of bits of this game. So I like this game so much more than I expected to. And it's not exactly because it's like earth shattering or anything. Like everything we just talked about, like we've played prettier games, we've played funnier games, we've played games with more mind bending puzzles, but as a whole, it's just really nice. It's a game about nice people in a slightly off world that is, kind of interesting, and it's just a nice play, and it's about 6 hours
People know,
long.
Reagan. People know that it's nice. Can we drill down a little bit on some of the puzzles? Can we talk about some of the puzzle
sure, yeah.
designs?
I'm happy to do so. I kind of thought go for it.
So, like, we have talked about the mechanic in general, but what I thought was really interesting about the game is it took it a long time, probably 3+ hours, before I ran into a repeated puzzle mechanic. Like, there is a huge variety. When I realized this was basically, the map from Carcassonne turned into a puzzle, I thought I had a pretty good idea of, like, what is the game going to really be. And I was actually a little wary of it for that reason. What I thought I was going to wind up playing was a bunch of like block sliding Sokoban type puzzles. And you really don't get that until a little bit near the end. It is all over the map in terms of what you're doing. A lot of it is just like picking up on hints in the environment that give you some idea about like some arrangement of like area to do, or like just unlocking new areas to give you new little cards to put onto the map to lay out new map tiles. Like there's a ton of variety to it. Did anybody else like really think the game was like pretty inventive in that way?
Well, one thing that I wasn't expecting, and I think this is, again, why I said at the beginning, like if you're expecting to actually utilize like skills from Carcassonne in this, like don't like
the only skill from Carcassonne is looking at these tiles and recognizing what can match with what. That's very important, and obviously, like it's not hard, but if you've played Carcassonne, that'll help a little bit.
Yeah. So one of the puzzles that is one of the first that you do that I think is kind of representative of how this game is not at all like Carcassonne, though, in its puzzle mechanics, is that like it's one of the first ones. So I don't think this is. Hopefully, this isn't too much of a spoiler for you guys. But you're helping locate these sheep, and the first few they're just there. They're out in the field, and you just go find them and you bring them back, and it's fine. But then the last one, they say, "I can't find this sheep. It's probably in its favorite spot, hiding in the middle of all the white flowers." And you've seen on the tiles so far out in the map, there are patches of white flowers. And when you look at the map from the top down view, you can see that there are, if you have the square, you'll see that one side of four individual squares has like a little circle of white flowers on it. And when I first started messing around with the puzzle, I was thinking, okay, so the sheep is in the middle of those white flowers. So I need to organize these 4 tiles in a way that all the white flowers are touching each other or all close enough to like, the sheep's going to appear in there. But what you actually have to do is arrange where there's actually an empty space in the middle. So you have like your top square has the white flowers pointing down. Your bottom, there's a gap. Then you have a bottom square with the white flowers.
Yeah, that got me a little bit. You're not trying to make the white flowers you have into a thing that you'll find the sheep then in the middle of. You're trying to arrange the white flowers with nothing in the middle, and then it generates a new tile for you. That new tile appears in the middle, and that tile had the sheep. And that was when I was like, kind of unlocks like, oh, like you're gonna sometimes solving the puzzle actually creates new tiles for you. So you don't always have all of the pieces to the puzzle in front of you. The puzzle is arranging
the existing things in a way that leaves like a gap. And they do this in a lot of different ways. Later on, there's a thing where it's like, oh, go to the mouth of the river to find this thing. And you're looking at your tiles and you're like, I don't have a tile with a river mouth. However, I do see there's a tile over here that looks like the beginning of a river. There's a tile over here that looks like maybe it's the middle of a section of a river. When you combine all those, it then like cling, and the river mouth tile then appears, and now you have that tile for other future puzzles as well. So a lot of it is actually creating tiles, which I thought was really, really cool. And they do a lot more interesting and complex things than those. Those are really, really early ones.
And that even felt fair because in the previous very first tutorial level, a man is looking for his house and there is no house on the map. But if you put the tiles in the order that he has, suggested, his house will manifest. So there is kind of this magical element of if you do what the people say, what you need will appear. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't feel unfair that there's a quote unquote missing tile, because you're just like, oh, it's just another thing that appears if I fit the parameters. And you can see that they keep going and going.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a similar one where I remember they had one tile that's like a fork in the road, and there's a sign on the east and the west fork, and the one says curvy
straight
roads
road
east to the mountain, and the one on the other side says like straight road west to the shore. And like if you put the curvy and the straight road in the place that they're supposed to be, like it expands the map out. And what's kind of neat is like, once you have built this and you've got these additional tiles, you're going to wind up like shuffling things around and rearranging them again and again. Like you never have to you're not building anything most of the time with the map tiles. You're not like fitting things into place. You're shuffling things around constantly as a way to solve puzzles, or like I was saying before, just get from point A to point B easily.
That's a really good point. Something that could have really sunk this for me is if it was all about like, we're going to have an increasingly complicated map and you have to find where every individual piece on the map goes to make it fit. That's the kind of puzzle, basically jigsaw puzzle style, that I don't really enjoy. This never goes into jigsaw puzzle territory. It's always about like, well, maybe there's 15 tiles that you have to choose from, but what are the 3 you need to put together right now? And they can be detached from everything else. You just need to put them together in the way that you need for the moment. And it's always in flux. And that was a huge win in terms of design here, never really making you feel like you have to spend a long time just doing a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, and even later in the game when it's at its most complicated, where there'll be there's 4 or 5 different terrain types. So, terrain type A can only connect to terrain type A, and B to B, and C to C, so on and so forth. And you're like, all right, I know I need to get all the way to terrain type E, and I have to find the right order of things to progress through each of these terrain types to get to the final one. Even that can be done in these just isolated little areas where you once you're done with tile 1 of that progression, you could remove it and bring it all the way over to somewhere else. Or sometimes tile 1 from that progression will be used later as a bridge to continue into the puzzle. And it's very forgiving in that way and doesn't require you to piece together really elaborate things. Cause that would be really, really, really frustrating. And I'll say, I did finish the game, and while there were some challenging puzzles, there was never anyone that I felt like that was fair, or never did I feel that it was unfair or annoying. There were some that were a little harder to accomplish, but once I got it, I was like, I should have, I should have gotten that faster, or, oh, that's what they meant, but never oh, that's stupid. How was I supposed to know that? Or how was I supposed to figure that out? It never felt that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a hallmark to a game like this.
Yeah, I was, very impressed with its sort of subtle and yet really well-considered puzzle design throughout. And I really, really enjoyed this game. I recommend people check it out. It is, like we mentioned at the top of the show, it's available on Nintendo Switch, which I think is probably where most people are going to be checking it out, but it's also on all of the consoles. It's on Xbox Game Pass. It's on PC and I believe also Mac on all of the platforms for purchasing games there. So I would very much recommend people check it out. And I just had such a fun, chill experience with this one. It took about 6 hours for me. What did you guys find?
Well, my Switch says 97 hours, but I think that's
you had a really hard time, huh?
Man, you gotta you had to arrange it in a circle, where it's like put them in a circle. Mm-hmm. That one took me 92 hours, and then the rest of the game took. No, I don't know. Yeah, I think somewhere I played this game over 3 days, in 3 sittings each, a handful of hours each. And yeah, it was great. Also, side note, I played the last part of it with Molly. It was a really nice game to play with someone else, because it's just so delightful. And then even our 3.5-year-old was like really loved looking at all the colors and all the, delightful sprites and everything. Mm-hmm. So fun for the whole family.
Yeah. My son liked watching this game as well. He would just stare at it and yell, "Where is she going?"
Yeah. Well,
where is she going?
It was really fun for our daughter to watch until, I'm like stuck on like an arrangement puzzle and she's like, go back to the bear. And I'm like, I will.
That doesn't help.
Patreon release, Nate and Shane's kids review our games.
There we go.
Done.
Bonus episodes, guys. Yeah. One last little side note, Shane. At the beginning of the episode, you were asking like, who suggested we play this, right? And I did. Yeah. I did some searching. I searched very carefully through our Twitter and our email and our Discord, and as far as I can tell, it was you.
The call came from inside the house.
Yeah.
What a mystery.
You've solved my puzzle.
You've tumbled me.
It's all sliding into place. Well,
that's funny.
All right. I'm glad that we took the time.
We tied that mystery up at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and I'm glad we took the time to play this.
Like a good puzzle game.
Do we have time for what's making us happy this week?
Let's do it.
Let's do. I can go first if you guys want, because I have a really quick, simple one, and it kind of ties into the game. I played this game. So I talked on, I think, the last episode or maybe the one before about sort of updating my gaming PC. And one of the big exciting things about that for me was that I've been doing a lot of in-home streaming with Moonlight, which is an app for streaming your PC games to various devices, as well as other things like the similar thing from Steam. And I've done that enough lately that I finally decided to plunk down $100, which I think is way overpriced, but I still want to recommend this thing because I've been having so much fun with it, on something called the Backbone controller. I was made aware of this because Patrick Klepek at Vice did an article about it when he was talking about streaming games from his PlayStation 5, I think. But I want to kind of mention it. The Backbone controller is a iPhone controller add-on thing. It's one of these sort of expandy controllers that you fit onto the sides of your phone. And I have tried other ones of those, and they've all been really kind of bad. And I even tried the Razer Kishi, which is the one that most people recommend, but I didn't find it very comfortable ergonomically because it's very short as a controller goes. Like, it's like vertically, it doesn't have much of that like controller butt at the bottom that you really grip onto with your wrists. The part of the
gotta
controller?
have that butt.
You gotta have that butt. Well, this is an iPhone controller that has the butt. And it's pretty lightweight. So when you first pick it up, you think, well, this doesn't feel that great. But then you put your phone in it. It's like, oh, actually, the combined weight of the phone plus this is about the same as any controller I'm used to. It feels really natural. The buttons are all really nice. The D-pad is at least acceptable. It's got all of the buttons that you need. And unlike it has an app that goes along with it that I was expecting to kind of ignore because it does just work as like a standard iOS controller. You open any app that supports controllers on an iPhone or iPad or whatever, and it doesn't work with iPad. It's an iPhone controller, but you get the idea. Any app that supports controllers works with this because it's using the totally standard controller interface. But they do have their own app, and I expected to kind of ignore it, but it's actually really, really nice. It gives you this horizontal interface that you can add any game on your phone to it. It has its own little database of all of the controller supporting games on iOS. But basically, you open a game and then you hit this button on the controller that is like the home button kind of. And it switches you immediately to their app that gives you a nice launcher interface. And it does some other really nice stuff too. It has a little interface for doing things like taking screenshots or video that it feels like the same sort of features that you have on consoles, where you can do little clips of your gameplay and save them, but you're on your phone, so you can immediately share them directly from there. And it lets you, switch between games directly from the controller without having to flip your phone back to vertical to, browse through your apps or whatever. It just really makes the experience really seamless and really felt like a little game console. It really reminded me of using something like a Switch Lite. So if the idea of using your phone in a more game console like fashion, especially with the availability of streaming options like xCloud and Stadia, and even streaming from devices in your home like the PlayStation streaming or streaming from a gaming PC, if that's appealing to you, this is the best option there is out there now. It's definitely the best one. I've tried some third-party ones. I've tried the Razer one. I've been unhappy with every single one of these I've tried except this one, but this one is really good. So I would recommend it, and it's making me happy.
They had a ludicrously good PR launch. I don't understand how they got placed in literally every magazine. We talked about it a lot at work. Like, they got written up in Wired, and we were like, how is Backbone it's insane. So I'm glad to know that it actually lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
They got placement everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how their marketing must be pretty decent, but like their hardware it's not like astonishing. It just feels a lot like Switch parts in a
No, I'm just happy because that was all pre-release.
Yeah.
And so we were like, it's not out yet.
Yeah, I don't know when this thing came out or whatever, but like, I don't know. I just plunked down for it on a whim. And honestly, it's $100. That is too much. Like this would be a must buy at like $50-$60. It feels a little bit like a ripoff at $100, but it really did open some experiences for me that I was really wanting to have. And I played Carto almost exclusively on it. And it was a really, really nice experience. So I love this thing. It's great. Nate, what's making you happy this week?
Yeah, so Molly and I started watching a show recently that I have been really hooked on. It's called Search Party. It is a dark comedy. We've been watching it on HBO Now, which I have apparently had for a very long time through my AT&T subscription, but just found out like a couple weeks ago. So we've been kind of digging into what is on there. And the main star of the show is Aaliyah Shawkat, most known as Maybe from Arrested Development.
Oh, yeah.
It is about a group of 20-somethings who are pretty self-absorbed. They get themselves into a mystery situation where they're trying to solve a missing person's case, and it gets ridiculous. I really don't want to spoil anything, but I'll say the show goes in a direction that I was very, very much not expecting, and really, really appreciate the degree that appreciate what they're trying to accomplish with it. And I've been really, really enjoying it. We're into the second season. Check it out. They're short episodes, and it doesn't take too long to get it really going. I'd say like watch at least the first 2 episodes to kind of understand like the vibe and the degree at which the show is handling itself. But it gets better and better and more ridiculous and more like stressful. So I highly recommend it. I guess I'll leave it at that. I know this is kind of mysterious, but you kind of just have to watch it to see what I'm going for, or what the show's going for. But I'll say it's very, very funny and very tense and very dark, and I've been really, really enjoying it. So Search Party, check it out.
That sounds great. Jane, what's making you happy this week?
Well, you guys probably know that I'm a big fan of B movies. and have been for a long time.
I really thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say Magic the Gathering. I was going to say, Shane, I did not know you were a big fan of.
Unlike
and
my love
not
of Magic,
B movie. The category.
I mean, the B movie is fine.
I saw that in theaters.
My love of like actual B movies, a lot of it goes back to like Late Nights with Mystery Science Theater 3000. The fact that Troma Pictures would have like a stand selling DVDs at the punk shows I used to go to, stuff like that. I just always liked weird, over the top B pictures. And maybe my most anticipated movie of 2021, here we are, maybe 23 days into 2021, has come out, and it is called Psycho Goreman. Psycho Goreman is a kind of
just to clarify, gore man or like gourmand, like someone who eats food.
I don't think you do see him eat.
So it's
in
Psycho
this film, but not
gore man.
Film.
Okay, thank you.
It's one word.
You do not see him eat food in this. You do see him consume his enemies. In a horrifying way. So Psycho Goreman is the story of two kids in the 80s who are just really dumb and annoying, who find a magic gem that allows them to unearth a horrifying monster who's been buried for thousands of years, and control him and make him be their friend. And it's about love and friendship. It's like this 80s trend that includes movies like E.T., where like the kids befriend some supernatural or otherworldly entity, but then combine that with the over-the-top practical effects action and horror of like completely diametrically opposed other 80s movies. It's got that kind of vibe going on, and it's just stupid fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I watched the trailer, and the way that I would sum it up is like it's like E.T., but instead of meeting a cute friendly alien, they meet an enemy from the Power Rangers.
Yes. And in fact, all the enemies, and there's a lot of really over the top crazy practical effects in this, all of them would be like right at home in something like Toho.
I think you're thinking,
I'm saying it wrong.
Toho is the company.
Tokusai?
Tokusatsu is the company.
Yeah, whatever what he said. Things like Ultraman. Like it would be very much at home in that kind of genre. There's a lot of really excellent rubber suits in this, because now that this alien has been unearthed, all of his friends and foes are coming to Earth to duke it out, and it's really over the top funny. It's not the best movie I've ever seen. But it was unabashedly nearly the worst, and I really loved it for it.
Okay, I'm into it. I'm very into it. I've got it on my list right now, ready to watch.
I love a good B movie or bad movie. If you haven't seen Birdemic, it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh my god, Birdemic! I have seen it. Laura,
No.
Laura, what is making you happy this week?
Well, I'm going to go back to the cozy vibes of the earlier conversation and say that I have been watching season 2 of Hilda.
I love Hilda.
Hilda is so nice.
Hilda's so good.
Hilda is a really charming animated TV show that is set in kind of this, Nordic perfect town where there's mythology and real life going on. But basically, Hilda is the worst kid, but with a great heart. She's such a bad, naughty kid, though. She is always going out and having adventures with trolls and elves and dragons, but they don't call them dragons on the show. I'll let you guys find out, what it's called, because it's kind of a reveal. And, krakens in season 2 and witches. It's wonderful. It's so light and charming. And I think what's specifically making me so happy is the character of David, her cowardly friend, who for some reason has no whites of his eyes and always has bugs on him.
You've got a bug on you.
You've got a bug on you, David. And then they take the bug off. David has just some absolutely great moments in season 2. And it's the kind of charming show where my husband and I are both watching under blankets. And whenever David said something that was particularly funny, we'd both kind of look at each other and make a happy face and look back at the screen. Because we're like, did you see the charming line too? And then we look back. The first time I watched season 1, we had a flight delay due to snow at LaGuardia Airport, and we had the most hellish day. And we had been traveling and failing to get home. We ended up having to get a hotel at LaGuardia, and we were stuck for an entire day, and we watched Paddington 2 and then all of season 1 of Hilda.
Both
Well,
great.
Snowed outside, and we ordered takeout from Queens. And I was just like, this is
that sounds great.
Correct.
Yeah.
I've only seen season 1. I can't wait to watch season 2. Now I'd forgotten that it had come out.
Charming.
So
it just came out. Yeah.
It came out in over Christmas break. And I'll say that there's one, I really want to spoil a line that I'll tell you guys after, but Frida gets an excellent glow up in season 2 where she gets more to do, and yay for Frida, because Frida has some troubles in season 1, so it's great to have her have a real like superpowery thing to do in season 2.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is among one of the most positive depictions of librarians in pop culture that we've had in years, and
it keeps going.
Yeah, they really. The first season really has this wonderful, like feeling of like existing in a really beautiful big world, right? Where like everything in Hilda's world seems both like cozy and normal, but also adventurous and magical at the same time. And the second season gives you so much more of that. Like she's finally learning, a little bit about life in Trollberg, and the world becomes a little bit more real, but also a little bit more dangerous in ways that I think are really neat. And I cannot wait for season 3.
Yeah, there's apparently a 70-minute movie coming.
Ooh, really?
Which I'm very thrilled
are they
about.
doing the troll adventure thing? Okay, so these are based on a comic book series, and I have not read the comics, but I know that they, just from even the stuff on the covers, like season 1 is some based on the comics, but a lot of original stuff, and then season 2 has a little bit more that it seemed like that was from the comics. So it seems like they have like one big comic that they haven't touched. So maybe they're doing that with the movie.
I hope so. I just think it's so warm, and it's definitely something that if you need that in your life, watch Hilda. You will not regret it.
Yeah, it's lovely. I thank you for reminding me that I need to watch that, because I'm looking forward to it now.
It's a balm.
That reminds me, Molly said Carto is kind of like the Ted Lasso of video games, and I think
Hilda is the Ted Lasso of children's TV.
Yeah.
It'll just make you feel better.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, where you'll find all of the ways to contact and support us, like a contact form where you can email us. You'll find a link to our Patreon, which is also patreon.com/theshortgame. And of course, we have a Discord where we chat about the games we're playing, about upcoming stuff, about things like Hilda. And you can join our Discord by becoming a patron. Every one of our patrons, at even just $1 a month, which, come on, $1 a month. You got that right. You can join our Discord, and we would be very, very glad to have you. You can also find us on Twitter. That's @_shortgame. Or, of course, you can find me on Twitter @RayganK. That's RayganK. Laura, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter @Laura J. Nash.
And Shane, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at 8BitShane.
And Nate, where can people find you?
On Twitter at NateSTL.
And thanks once again for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.